I'm an absolute firm believer that every person needs encouragement at some point in time in their life. I know that I do. The things that I want to share with you today are basically one beggar telling other beggars where he found bread. Our journey together begins with the tale of two lives, men who had heard two very different voices. One a professional baseball player, the other a prison inmate. Their lives intersected in a prison auditorium because upon retiring, the pro dedicated his life to helping as many other people as he possibly could by sharing with them his story. A story that began with a childhood memory of a father tucking him in at night and saying things such as, "You know, son, I don't know what it is about you, but you really have what it takes. You know, when God made you, He gave you the best part of your mother and I. I can't wait to see how your life turns out." Oh, that every child should have that as their earliest memory. His dad loved baseball, and so he would take him to the baseball field, and the team would run on and go, hey, Dad, that's going to be me someday." His father, "Absolutely, kid. Go for the gold, man. Dream your dreams. Give life your best shot. Don't ever be afraid of trying and failing, because it's not making you a failure." This young man had tremendous ability. The harder he worked, the better he got. He was All-America his senior year in high school, and he got a full athletic scholarship to a Pac-10 university on the West Coast. The harder he worked, the better he got. All-America his junior and senior year. He was a first-round draft pick for a Major League Baseball team who immediately put him in single-A ball. He did so well after the first month. They promoted him to double-A. The second month put him in triple-A. And at the end of his first year in triple-A, he was leading the league in RBIs, slugging percentage, average, and home runs. So they brought him up to the major leagues. And where he was batting over 300 in the minors, he batted below 100 in the majors. They said, "Oh, he's just learning. The kid's just got to get some more experience." They sent him back down to the minor leagues. Halfway through his second year in the minor leagues, he's again leading the league in RBIs and slugging percentage. So they brought him up to the major leagues, and where he was batting over 300 again, he batted just over 100 in the majors. They sent him back down. This ritual occurred year after year for 6 years total. And having been sent down his 6th year, discouraged, feeling like a failure and defeated, he calls up his dad to tell him that he was quitting baseball. When he called his dad, the silence on the other end of the line was only broken by the sharp rebuke. "Stop it. Listen, I know you and I know baseball, and son, if anybody can do it, you can. Now, if they want to cut you or fire you, fine. You let them do it, but don't you dare quit. You will regret it for the rest of your life." And then his father asked him what every parent of a teen has asked their child at one point in time or another: "What are you thinking?" And it got him to thinking. And what he realized is that when he was in the minor leagues, he was playing against people that he knew that he could hit anytime, anywhere, because he played against them in high school and in college. But when he got to the pros, he was facing Cy Young Award winners, all-star pitchers, and men whose cards he had collected. And when he stood at the plate, all he could think about was not striking out. So what did he do? He knew that if he was going to break free and to become free from these negative thoughts and these negative feelings, he had to change the way he thought, which meant he was going to have to change the way he acted as well. He got those big reels and would watch these pictures. He would put it up on his wall. He bought a bat. He would stand in his apartment and would watch him pitcher line up, throw the pitch, and he would close his eyes and swing the bat and imagine it hitting and striking the ball and driving it through for a single, a double, or triple, or a home run. Day after day, week after week, changing the way that he believed so he could change the way that he acted. He reported to the Major League Spring Ball that season, and, well, for the next 8 years, he stayed in the major leagues. And 3 of those years, he was an all-star pitcher. And so as he finished up telling his story to the prisoners and the principles that made such a big difference of his life, he concluded with this thought: "You know, of all the fame and fortune that I've experienced, the thing that is most gratifying for me is that I didn't disappoint my dad." The men gave him a standing ovation and came up and shook his hand and thanked him for his insight. until finally one man who had been beaten and broken by life, the last man standing, walked up to him with tear-stained eyes and through stammering lips because of a speech impediment. He said, "Sir, I want you to know that I know what you're saying is true. Because ever since I was a little boy, all my dad said that I was a piece of trash and I was no good and that I'd never make anything of my life and that I'd be in prison before I was 25. And sir, I didn't disappoint my dad either." Two voices, both very powerful in their own way. Voices that influence beliefs, and we all know that behaviors follow beliefs. That what you and I believe to be true, we do. And that we don't so much see the world as it is, we see the world as we are. Listen, all of us experience failure, discouragement, setbacks. Each of us do. And how we respond to those is key. You know, they tell us that it's not so much what happens to you in life that matters, it's how you respond to it. And I basically agree with that. And a big part of how we respond to it is how we see ourselves and the beliefs that we have about ourselves. It also has to do with that voice that's going off inside us and that's coming from outside of us. Let me ask you something. How many of you guys talk to yourself? Some of you are going, I don't know. I guess we all talk to ourselves. Unfortunately, when we start talking to ourselves after a discouraging or defeat, the voice becomes negative and berating and shameful and starts feeding into a cycle of negativity that goes into our life. Psychologists tell us that we already have, because of the survival instinct, a negativity bias. And I tend to believe them. You and I could do 10 projects. 9 of them come out fabulously. 1 fails. Where's our focus? What eats at us day in and day out. See, life can become so challenging and so difficult that the negative feelings and the negative thoughts calcify within us and become like a stone right here in our gut. And all the self-help and self-affirmation is not loud enough or strong enough to bust up that stone. Self-will and determination and self-control. Well, it's a resource that's limited within us, and so it's not enough energy to break the stone. No, what is needed is the powerful sound of another's voice, the sound of encouragement. The sound of encouragement, like the ultrasound breaking up kidney stones, can smash and smatter this stone of despair and release hope. I had the good fortune of being recruited to play at the College of William and Mary down in Virginia. I don't know if you guys are familiar with it. Second oldest school in the country, called the Harvard of the South. I did not get in because of my academic prowess. I got in because I was a rather large fellow. I could put my head through someone's chest. They gave me a scholarship. I had a really rough time my freshman year. As a matter of fact, I successfully failed 4 out of 5 classes my first semester. And I got down. I said, I'm going to determine, I'm going to work harder, I'm going to be better. And took my midterm second semester and was only failing 3 out of 4 classes my second semester. And as my failure started to mount, my frustration grew. And as the frustration grew, I finally went to a winter workout where we were running and lifting and getting in physical shape. And I worked out as hard physically as I've ever worked out. And I just was physically exhausted. And so much so that my legs were, I had the knees that shook, and I was sitting down on the steps before you exited the door, and all the guys kept leaving me. And I was just so discouraged that I had my face in my hands and just thinking about the reproach that I was bringing on myself and my family and how I was failing, and I was just so discouraged. And I thought everybody had left, and I was about to get up when I heard steps coming behind me, and I thought, well, I'll wait. And then the steps stopped, and I felt this arm come around my shoulder, and I looked back, and there was Coach Lou Tepper. Coach Tepper had just talking to my advisor, and he knew my circumstance and situation. And he looked at me, he says, Rolfe, he says, you don't think you're going to make it, do you? No, sir. About that time, the dam broke, and I just put my face in my hands and just started weeping. He said, hey, look at me. And I looked at him. He says, I believe you're going to make it because I believe in you. Come see me tomorrow. He got up and walked out the door. And ladies and gentlemen, that 90-second interaction, if that, literally changed the direction of my life because someone was willing to stop and speak a word of encouragement that shattered the rock and the stone of despair and discouragement. I couldn't wait to help somebody else out sometime with this. And when my son was born, I would watch him, and he was just such a great kid, and I just enjoyed him so much. But one thing that I noticed about my son was that when he was involved in a task and he couldn't get the task right, his frustration would mount. And especially I noticed when he was trying to do his shoes, his manual dexterity wasn't real good, and he was trying to tie those shoes, and he had these big old thick hands. I don't know where he got them. And so he couldn't get that thing tied up. And I just see this frustration rising in him. And maybe because I've experienced the same thing, I could identify it in him. And I thought, what can I do to help my son? Because here's one thing that I've learned. If you fail enough, you start thinking that way. And I've learned this, that people need to be loved the most when they deserve it the least. And that we desperately need people to believe in us when we can't even believe in ourselves. And I thought, I don't want to see him this way, so I'm going to look at him not as he is today, but what as he can be. I'm going to look at him as an eye of faith, and as I looked at him, I thought, what do I want him to be? I want him to be a man of perseverance. I don't want him to ever give up. And so as I came and knelt down beside him, I said, son, it looks like you're frustrated. You want to give up, don't you? Yeah. I said, I understand, I do too, but let me help you. But one of the things that Dad loves most about you? What? That you don't ever give up. Now, ladies and gentlemen, that had no basis in reality whatsoever, I can assure you that. The child would give up at the drop of a hat. But I was determined not to see him as he was, but to speak something into his life as what he could be. And day after day, week after week, month after month, year after year, when circumstances or situations would present themselves, I would try to do the same thing. You never know if you're really having an impact on anyone's life, do you? It was about 5 or 6. I'm standing there talking to a gentleman. He came up and put his hand on my side because we had told our children, you don't interrupt while we're talking to adults. So he put his hand on my side. And I said, yes, this is my son, Drew. Drew, just 1 minute, I'll finish my conversation. We'll come right with you. So I go back to my conversation, and my son's standing there, and then he starts pulling on my coat, and I'm ignoring him, and then he pulls on my coat, and he says, excuse me, son, don't interrupt again. I'm having a conversation. Please wait. Stand there quietly. Now, it's amazing how loud a child can be when they're being quiet, isn't it? He's running around, and distracted, and I'm trying to continue the conversation. I hear him over here, and then he pulls on my coat. And I ignore him. He pulls on my coat, and he goes, Dad! And I go, what? He goes, tell him what you like most about me. And I looked at him, and I said, there's so many things I love about my son, but one of the things I love most about him is that he never gives up. And he's continued his life, and he's kept working really hard, and he's just gotten married after working 2 jobs and finishing a master's degree. Ladies and gentlemen, we started our journey talking about 2 lives. I want to end our journey the same way. There's 2 lives I have a question about today. I wonder how my son will use his voice. And I wonder how you will use yours. Thank you for your time. God bless you. Good to be with you today.